sometimes when I talk about this stuff, I get the impression that it might sound easy. And this is certainly not easy for me. This is some of the hardest stuff I've ever had to do. The hardest but most rewarding. There is so much growth in this sort of internal work. It's not easy. It's not a golden pill. It's a constant struggle for me to go to that place of vulnerability. But I know that it's at that place that I become a better father and a better husband.
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Hi, and welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. I'm Martin Brooker, one of your hosts. I'm excited today to have with me Shea Adams from Perth, Western Australia. Shea, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Martin.
Well, look, it's great to have you on the show. We've got to know each other a little bit over the last 12 months or so. And for those that are listening in tonight or today during our conversation, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself. What's the Shea Adams story?
Yeah, right. How long do you have? I'll keep it brief. I grew up in a good Christian home, you might say. Good parents, went to a Christian school. Yeah, was a normal kid, enjoyed sports and that sort of thing. After school, I went to university in Sydney for a year to try and kind of get that independence that a young man looks for. I think I got that. Met my wife in Sydney, actually, and after completing the first year of studies over there, she was moving back to Perth, so I decided moving back to Perth was a pretty good option, and I followed her back and finished my degree over here. So through that process, I was studying at night, working full-time, and that was a tough period of life. It was probably around that time that I really started to struggle with anxiety and depression. Reflecting back, the stress of work and uni at the same time didn't help. That had been something that had been building kind of, I guess, right through my life. So you really notice that in my early 30s, it kind of stems from being in situations, or it's triggered in situations where I don't feel like I have an escape. So I hate crowds. I hate any environment where escape is going to be a lengthy process. So like even sounds silly, but even in big shopping centres like Kmart or Target, where you might get up the back corner and it's quite a distance to the exit, that would really freak me out. And I'd get to the point where I would physically be sick. So I'd start to feel sick in that environment, and then that was kind of like a vicious cycle. And so, yeah, really struggled with that for probably the better part of 10 years or more. I saw counsellors. I learned coping strategies. But I definitely hadn't improved, really. It was kind of, I'd take a few steps forward and then a few steps back. Kind of stuck on the wheel with that one. Yeah, so I'll go into that, I guess, a little bit more in some of your other questions, possibly. Around that time, I also started running long distances. So did ultra marathons and really enjoyed that, because in a way it was the same sort of struggle mentally for me. It was telling my brain that I was actually okay to keep going in whatever race or whatever distance I was at the time, which is similar to anxiety. You know, you got to tell your brain I'm actually not in a scary environment now. I'm okay. And so for me, that connection between running and the anxiety that I was struggling with in life was really, really good, and it gave me the opportunity to work on that in two different areas. So, yeah, was married. So back to the boring stuff of life, well, not the boring stuff, the ordinary stuff. Was married at 21, had kids by 23. So I'm still married now. I've got a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and so they keep me busy most days. I've got attitudes now, but it's good fun.
Sure. just like we did when we were that age.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Shea, you're professionally you're an accountant, aren't you?
I am.
Is that always what you've done? Have you always been in that space of numbers and finances?
I have, yeah, so don't hold that against me. It's not the most glamorous occupation, but it pays the bills, yeah. So at the moment, I'm working for a precious metal refinery, and that has interesting elements from day to day, so I'm enjoying that.
So you're part of the Crucible community in Australia. How did you find yourself on your first weekend?
I knew a few people that had done a Crucible weekend, and those people were very verbal in telling me, or very proactive, I guess, in telling me that I needed to go to a Crucible weekend, which I understand now, but I didn't understand at the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, it quite annoyed me, the fact that someone else was telling me I needed to do something. Didn't enjoy that. But eventually I was given an opportunity by Heist, and I'll be forever grateful to Heist, to go and be an observer for a Quest weekend. Now, Quest is very similar to the Crucible, but it's geared for young men. And so I went along to that weekend, and it opened my eyes to a different world, a different space. And I saw that, and I saw what the young men were getting from the weekend, and I thought, oh, I want that for myself. So I conned one of my good mates into doing the next weekend with me, and we went along, and I haven't looked back since then.
Yeah. So what is it that you wanted for yourself when you were heading off to that weekend? Not perhaps what you got, but like, what did you want? What was it that you wanted for yourself?
Yeah, it's a very good question. What did I want? I didn't know what I wanted at the time. I just knew that life was hard and it wasn't really working the way I wanted it to work. And so that's what I knew. But I wouldn't have been able to tell you at the time what I wanted from the weekend. And for me, that was really good because a lot of the processes on the weekend kind of dragged out that want from me, the want that I didn't know I had. It pulled it out and made it very clear for me that, that's what I needed to focus on. That's what I was missing, but I hadn't really put two and two together.
And it's fascinating, isn't that process that you sort of go into a place where you go, actually, I didn't know I needed this, but now I do know. Like, whoa,
yeah,
thank goodness.
Yeah, and it's a great experience, like to be able to put your finger on that thing that you're missing and go, yes, that's it. That's what I've been missing. Yeah, I got a lot from it.
Yeah. So what was that missing piece for you on that particular weekend?
Yeah, so I don't want to go too much into story. As a kid through school, there was a couple of incidents where I was bullied, I guess you could say. One time when I was about 12 or 13 in late primary school, a bunch of boys thought it would be fun to try and bury me in the sandpit. And these were my mates. And I made it very clear that I didn't want to be buried in the sandpit. That went ahead anyway. And that was terrifying at the time. And there were a couple of other incidents like this, like in early high school, I tried out for a basketball team, and I thought I did really well in the tryouts, and I should have had a place, and I didn't get offered a place. And so all of these events through my childhood were kind of giving me the message that I wasn't enough, that there was something in me that was weak. I was always a really small, skinny kid. And I'd told myself over and over internally, I guess, that I was weak, but I didn't have what it takes. And so these events kind of compounded that message. I think the want for me was peace, and the peace to know that who I am is actually enough.
Yeah. Honour to you for sharing that story, because it's not always easy to talk about those things. And but that's often the gift, isn't it, for men and women that attend these weekends, that they find that sort of thing and also probably flip the script, I suppose, that we had around our lives.
That's right, yeah. We take on messages. I took on a message right through life that it wasn't enough. And that was fed from a lot of different sources. Thinking about Christianity, like the household I grew up in was very much based on God being a God that valued rules and regulations. And I'm not saying he's not, but that kind of twisted my view on God, and I guess put the focus on that side of him rather than on the love and the grace and the acceptance side of him. And I'd just forgotten about that whole part of God till I went to the weekend and got the opportunity to see myself through the real God's eyes, the way he saw me.
So what was that experience of honesty and grace? And that, I mean, how did your relationship with God change as a result of that weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very judgmental person, Martin. And I mean,
me too, just by the way.
I still am. I'm very hard on myself. That judgmental part that I show other people or that comes out with other people also comes out on myself. I guess I learned over the weekend to recognize that judgmental voice and to counter it with the truth, the real truth about who I am, rather than the lies potentially or the incorrect messages that I've been taking on for so long, or I had been taking on.
I think it almost gets to a point where we actually get some perspective about what God actually sees in us, isn't it? It's like we shake some things off and actually we get a bit of insight into what God actually sees in us, the way we were created.
Yeah, without all of the baggage that we've taken on over time, just the pure view that he has of us. You just triggered another thought in my head about radical grace and honesty. On the weekend, I remember there was this judgmental part of me was well and truly in action, judging the staff, judging the other participants. And there was a participant that I was judging quite harshly and I hadn't connected with because I thought he was weird. And there was a point in the weekend where I was confronted with with the truth about me, the fact that I was actually lovable, I guess. And I remember connecting with this guy, and it was such a sweet experience to be able to remove that judgment and connect with another guy heart to heart that I'd previously judged quite harshly for no good reason at all. So yeah, I remember that. It was a sweet time. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate that observation you had about judgment, because we kind of, I guess, if you judge people in our world, you kind of know that you do it. Sometimes you don't, I suppose, but actually recognizing that you're the harshest critic and judging yourself is something I think so many people face. And I too found that weekend was the way in which sort of there was a light on it. It was like it wasn't in the shadows anymore. That judgment for myself and on others was like more in the open, that allowed me to actually do some work on it. What are your thoughts about it?
100% agree. Just the awareness around it, I think, is half the battle. And to bring it to the front rather than for it to be something happening subconsciously is hugely beneficial in everyday life now. I mean, those judgments are still there for me. They're not going to go away. But just the awareness now that I'm able to bring to those judgments and go, yeah, I can see that right away. And to be able to manage it and temper it has been a huge step forward through the journey.
The story I tell myself about that is that we also, when we actually have the judgments that are actually out in the light, it actually doesn't get so much in the way of relationships that we can have. It's like we can be comfortable with sort of some of that stuff and actually, but still have a meaningful relationship with a friend, a colleague, a work partner, etc.
Yeah, I guess it removes the barriers that we built over time because of those judgments. They're just gone once we're aware that they're there.
So your weekend was a few years ago. What did you find for yourself when you came home? What was that like, that connecting with your wife and your children after such an experience?
I wanted things to be different straight away, and I quickly learned that wasn't going to be the case because I'd been on this awesome experience that they knew nothing about. But I found for me, I'd been very closed off to my emotions for so many years. I'd learned to dull the feelings and avoid them, and just opening up that space to be able to feel again was incredible. I remember for the week after coming home from the weekend, listening to different songs and things, I just remember crying so much. I was never a crier before the weekend, but there was so much healing and a space to feel that was created over the weekend. Yeah, so I was much more aware of what was happening in my body, the feelings, and yeah, I just remember being really, really tender. But I must say the relationships, I didn't notice a massive impact straight away on the relationships. And my wife would probably say still that she hasn't recognized a massive change in me. I see a change in myself because I'm seeing all of the thought patterns that are happening in my head. But I'm not real good at implementing stuff, Martin. On the weekend, we're told often that the journey continues, and there certainly is a journey for me. I'm a slow learner in terms of implementing this stuff in real life.
I absolutely agree. And in fact, I know that it was the ongoing connection with the Crucible community beyond the weekend that has actually helped get the turnaround that I was after in my own personal life, not only for myself, but also the relationship with my future wife, and which was actually on the rocks before I went to the weekend. Like, it was gone, but it was that integration afterwards. And it's so wonderful that Crucible Project community does offer that opportunity to beyond the weekend. It's not like a sheep dip. Like, for those that are familiar with dipping sheep in Australia, it's a big thing. It's not like we could just put you in this magic solution and you pop up a different person. It's actually that ongoing work, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And over the years since my weekend, I've been off and on with attending a regular group. And I definitely see that when I'm in connection with other men and I'm putting my focus and attention back onto my internal world, that my relationships definitely improve when I'm engaged in that environment. I would agree. It's definitely something that is a journey, and a crucial part of the journey is that constant connection.
What have been some of the other benefits for yourself from that decision to attend that Crucible weekend, from the things you've learned perhaps in community or in a professional sense?
One of the key benefits is that I rarely struggle with the anxious thoughts and feelings anymore. I think being much more in touch around my real true identity has given me an inner confidence that I didn't have before. That shows up in all areas of my life, from work to home to the Crucible, even starting the leadership journey there. There's just a confidence and a peace in who I am that just wasn't there before.
One of the decisions you have made and your connection with the Crucible community is to go on that leadership track. And, I've known you just over 12 months, but it's like I've seen you change. Like, what have you noticed for yourself? What else has come up in terms of your capability as a leader as a result of being involved with the community and also doing your weekend?
When other people are going through something and the interactions with me might be different or negative, it's not necessarily about me. Sometimes it's the work or the stuff that they're struggling with. And so I've learned not to take on other people's emotions. That used to really throw me. If someone came quite angry to me, I'd really struggle staying present and not taking on feelings of I've done something wrong or, just taking on that situation. So being much more aware of what's my stuff and what someone else's stuff has been something that I've learned. Sometimes when I talk about this stuff, I get the impression that it might sound easy. And this is certainly not easy for me. This is some of the hardest stuff I've ever had to do. The hardest but most rewarding. There is so much growth in this sort of internal work. It's not easy. It's not a golden pill. It's a constant struggle for me to go to that place of vulnerability. But I know that it's at that place that I become a better father and a better husband. So I know that I need to keep going back there, even though it's hard, because that's the place where I grow in those areas in my life that mean a lot to me.
Yeah. What have been some of those rewards in terms of relationship with your children, for example?
Yeah, I used to be terribly angry. I still get quite fiery at times. I never used to be able to control my anger with my kids, though. I think one of the benefits is being able to put barriers in place now so that I don't go over the line with them. And I'm still on the journey of being able to communicate clearly when I'm angry, but I've certainly noticed steps in the right direction in that area.
I guess as a father myself, it's like I don't think you can do enough to be better at that parenting. It's like, it's interesting in Australia, you have to do 150 hours behind the wheel of a car to get a driver's license supervised by somebody else. But as a parent, you can just turn up, so to speak. I think, there's so much benefit in investing, and that's for me, that's what the Crucible Project has been for me and my children. I have grandchildren now, but it's like, this is for me is an investment in being a better father, sorting out some of the stuff that happened along the way, and also being a better grandfather.
Yeah, definitely. I remember having a baby in my arms at 23 going, I am not ready for this. Like, where did this come from? And I reckon I've felt like that for quite a few years, and I wish I had something like this much earlier. Yeah, to be able to use as a tool with the people in my life that mean the most to me.
Somebody listening to this podcast today, thinking about going to initial weekend, what would you say to them? What would be your encouragement to them about going to their first weekend?
Well, I like the Nike slogan, just do it. It's kind of like the thing that I didn't really want to do. So for me to try and talk about the benefits of it and try and win you over with sales pitch is not going to work. And I've tried that with people and it doesn't work. All I can say is, hey, this was a weekend that really worked for me. That's the place I came from. This is where I am now. I would love for you to experience that growth as well. It's been really hard and it's tough, but just do it.
Yeah. And so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nowhere else that I've seen in life, even through the counselling journey, where someone is able to have this sort of growth and development in such a short period of time.
Shea Adams, thanks so much for being with us today. Thanks for opening up and talking about those matters of the heart for yourself and being just completely honest and vulnerable about your own experience. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Martin, for having me.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening. And don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.